The world needs more Jesus, but here's why. The world doesn't need more Jesus because there's so much wickedness and evil. The world needs more Jesus because it's lacking in Jesus. Jesus said that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. So from this I conclude that as food fills our stomachs, the Word of God fills our hearts. And if the Word of God fills our hearts like food fills our stomachs, notice that when your stomach gets empty, you need food again. So as your heart gets empty, you need the Word of God again. And so, if this world, in which this world needs Jesus, that is why, because so many around this world are deprived of it. So many of this world are not being saved and salvaged. They're not gaining salvation. And they're not gaining this peace and life and love. Because Jesus is the bread of life. And Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And there's so many in this world that are not hearing about it. And that's why we need missionaries, so that they can go out and spread the word. And that's why we need you to go out and spread the word. Every single person that has read the word of God, and every single person that has heard what Jesus has said, we need you to spread it. That's why, because as food fills our stomachs, the word of God fills our hearts. And see, there's so many people trying to come up with thinking that, oh, let's get world peace or all that stuff, but if you want peace, have love first, because that is what brings peace. From love brings peace, joy, many other things as well. But the world needs Jesus because the world needs to be fed, and the world is starving. That's why if you've heard of Jesus, you've heard the things he said, tell someone. Preach it. Which is why I'm doing this right now, because the world needs to hear about Jesus. And Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is like a man who left, and he had 3 servants. To each of his servants, he left certain amount of shekels. To one of his servants, he gave 10 shekels. And then the other servant, he gave 5. And then the other servant, he gave 1. And so then when the man left and came back, one of the servants, the one who had 10 shekels, said, "Look what I've done. I've made 10 more shekels." And this man who owned these servants says, "Good job." And then the one who had 5 says, "Look, I've made 5 more." And then he says, "Well done." But then the one who had 1 shekel said, "I was afraid, so I hid it. And then I brought it back to you so that you would not lose it." And he says, "You wicked servant." And he takes the shekel from him and gives it to the one who had 10. For he who has little, even from him will all be stripped away. And he who has much will be given much more. And that's why we spread the word of God. Because if you have the word of God and you've read it, you've heard what Jesus said, you need to spread that. You need to be like the servant who had 10 shekels. Not like the one who had 1 and didn't ever tell anyone because you're too embarrassed or whatever excuse comes across. You need to do it because you will be doing well and you'll be doing the right thing. As I've stated, the world is starving. The world needs more Jesus. It needs to be filled and fed. Jesus asked one of his disciples 3 times, "Do you love me?" He says, "Yes, of course, Lord." And he repeats this question 3 times. And then on the last time, he's like, "Jesus, dude, I done told you I love you." And then Jesus is like, "Then feed my sheep." And that's why we spread the word of God. That's why we need to spread Jesus.